And so as we continue on with the unread nonfiction, it's going to go into a read fiction, into my read fiction, and this is shelf bookcase number 3. The only thing I have on top of bookcase number 3 is this Harry Potter Golden Stitch clock, which I got as a lovely gift from a family friend, but I've been too lazy since we moved to put it together, and I keep forgetting, but I need to. And there's no picture on the box of what it's supposed to look like, otherwise I would show you. Continuing on with the books, Worse Than War by Daniel Jonah Goldhagen. Genocide, Eliminationism, and the Ongoing Assault on Humanity. Empty Mansions, The Mysterious Life of Huguette Clark and the Spending of a Great American Fortune by Pill Dedman and Paul Clark Newell Jr. The History of Western Philosophy by Bertrand Russell. An Utterly Impartial History of Britain, or 2,000 Years of Upper-Class Idiots in Charge. Only 2,000, huh? The City of Falling Angels by John Berendt, also the author of Midnight in the Garden of Good and Evil, which I could not get into, so I donated it. The Nazi Doctors, Medical Killing and the Psychology of Genocide by Robert J. Lifton. Fighting for Life by F. Josephine Baker. Introduction by Helen Epson. Philosophy of Science, a very short introduction, and science started off as philosophy because a lot of stuff was hypothetical and not able to be performed and practiced, so I really always loved that. The History of Sexuality, Volume 1, an introduction by Michael Foucault. Bill Bryson, A Short History of Nearly Everything. Legacy of Ashes, The History of the CIA by Tim Viner. Gulag, A History by Anne Applebaum. What the Dog Saw and Other Adventures by Malcolm Gladwell. Will in the World, How Shakespeare Became Shakespeare by Stephen Greenblatt. Crucible of War, The 7 Years' War and the Fate of Empire in British North America, 1754 to 1766 by Fred Anderson. The Moral Animal, Why We Are the Way We Are, The New Science of Evolutionary Psychology by Robert Wright. Logic, a very short introduction, and as I mentioned briefly earlier in this video, I really love logic, specifically symbolic logic and such, which is like all this stuff in it, and so yeah, I like having this little pocket. The Badass Librarians of Timbuktu and the Race to Save the World's Most Precious Manuscript. I still wake up thinking about the Library of Alexandria, and how it burned down, as a future librarian myself, and someone who works in libraries. The Swerve by Stephen Greenblatt. How the World Became Modern. He also wrote the Shakespeare book I showed. Civilization and Its Discontents by Sigmund Freud. I've read bits and pieces of this in school, but not the whole thing, so hence why it's in the unread section. The Psychopath Inside, a neuroscientist's personal journey into the dark side of the brain by James Fallon. This guy found he checked all the boxes of being a psychopath, but he's not a crazy murderous person, and so he reflects on that. The Interpretation of Dreams by Sigmund Freud, the complete and definitive text. Again, read bits and pieces of this, not the whole thing. The Invention of Nature, Alexander von Humboldt's New World by Andrea Wolf, and I'm really excited to get this. close one. Owls aren't wise, bats aren't blind, a naturalist debunks our own favorite fallacies about wildlife, by Warner Shedd. Alexander Hamilton by Ron Chernow, which somehow inspired Lin-Manuel Miranda to write a whole rapping play about it. The Revolution in Mind, The Creation of Psychoanalysis by George McCurry. So excited to get to this. Oh, love this stuff, as you can't tell from, if you can't tell from the other items on my shelves. Devil in the Grove by Gilbert King. Command and Control by Eric Schlosser, Nuclear Weapons, The Damascus Accident, and the Illusion of Safety. Black Tutors by Miranda Kaufman. Really excited to get to this and the next one, which is Black and British, A Forgotten History by David Olusoga. Ghost Wars, The Secret History of the CIA, Afghanistan, and Bin Laden from the Soviet invasion to September 10th, 2001, September 11th. Oh, you know what I mean, the day before it goes to, but surrounding that event, and by Steve Cole. Madness by Maria Hornbacher, author of Wasted. So it's about being bipolar. Stalin and the Scientists, A History of Triumph and Tragedy from 1905 to 1953 by Simon Ings. Aristotle's Politics. So just a work of Aristotle's. I love the photo on here. Look at that, you know what I mean, the rendition. Sex and Punishment from 1,000 Years of Judging Desire by Eric Berkowitz. The Origins of Totalitarianism by Hannah Arendt. Heard that she's amazing and fantastic. House of Treason, The Rise and Fall of a Tudor Dynasty by Robert Hutchinson. The Lucifer Effect, Understanding How Good People Turn Evil by Philip Zimbardo. Basically people's superhero or supervillain evil origin stories. Sexual Behavior in the Human Male by Alfred Kinsey, Wardell Pomeroy, and Clyde Martin. The movie Kinsey was really interesting, and I heard about this guy. He's the creator of the Kinsey scale, so the sexuality scale from, you know, 1 through 10, whatever. And so there's parts 1 and 2 of the male and 1 and 2 of the female. I only got 1, but I really should buy all 4 just so I can have them. And the Romanovs, 1613 through 1918 by Simon Sebag Montefiore. And I have wanted this on my list forever, and it's just so beautiful. Beautiful. Ludwig II of Bavaria by Martha Schad. Madness Explained, Psychosis and Human Nature by Richard Bentel. This book is absolutely amazing. It's absolutely brilliant. It goes into detail about kids and violence and like signs too of people having mental illness and being violent in the future. Like, it's so in-depth, and I never finished it, but I did mark it up quite a bit of what I did read, and so this is another one that I really want to finish and just have not yet. A Crack in the Edge of the World, America and the Great California Earthquake of 1906 by Simon Winchester. This guy is amazing. He wrote Krakatoa, which, even though I thought it was too long, was about a big, oh my gosh, I'm blanking on what those things are called that explode and lava comes out. And then he also wrote The Professor and the Madman, which is the history of the Oxford Dictionary, which sounds boring, but is one of the best nonfiction books I've ever read. We have Holy Shit, A Brief History of Swearing by Melissa Moore. SPQR, A History of Ancient Rome by Mary Beard. I tried listening to this and could not get into it, so. The Wicked Boy, An Infamous Murder in Victorian London by Kate Summerscale. Was going to read it, didn't, recently, but didn't. The Second Sex by Simone de Beauvoir. I read something else by her into philosophy, and I just didn't really care for her that much. Maybe it was just her writing, but She still talks about some important stuff. The Four Archetypes by C.J. Jung. Shot, Stabbed, and Poisoned, The Story of Assassination Throughout the Ages by Jonathan J. Moore. Under the Black Flag, The Romance and the Realities of Life Among Pirates by David Cordingley. Marie Antoinette by Antonia Fraser. Yeah. The Gene, An Intimate History by Siddhartha Mukherjee. I started reading this, but again, just wasn't feeling it. But I'm still really excited to continue on because I was only in the introduction. It was fascinating. A Brief History of Vice, How Bad Behavior Built Civilization by Robert Evans. Michael Lewis, The Big Short, Inside the Doomsday Machine. It's about the economic crash of 2008. A History of the Nazi Concentration Camps, KL, by Nikolaus Voxman. On Intelligence, The History of Espionage and the Secret World by John Hughes Wilson. Dynasty, The Rise and Fall of the House of Caesar by Tom Holland. The Inkblots, Hermann Rorschach, His Iconic Test and the Power of Seeing by Damien Searles. A History of the World in 100 Objects by Neil MacGregor. One Summer, America, 1927 by Bill Bryson. The 48 Laws of Power by Robert Greene. The Age of Extremes, 1914 to 1991 by Eric Hobsbawm. This one I'm so excited for. Mad, Bad, and Sad, A History of Woman and the Mind Doctors from 1800 to the Present by Lisa Apignanesi. And so, you know, women have always been treated very poorly and not taken very seriously, especially when they become quote-unquote crazy. The Secret History of the World by Mark Booth. Rhetoric, a very short introduction. Foundation, The History of England from its earliest beginnings to the Tudors by Peter Ackroyd. The Empathy Exams by Leslie Jameson. Young Stalin by Simon Sebag Montefiore. And the last one in my unread nonfiction is Manhunt, The 12-Day Chase for Lincoln's Killer, which I also cracked open and actually made me laugh a couple times, but just wasn't meant to be read at that time. And yeah. I just finished counting, forgot to do it earlier. For this section, I have 96 unread nonfiction books. I will total all the books I have not finished at the end of the video, but if you're keeping track, that's 199 unread fiction and 96 unread nonfiction. Hey guys, and welcome to part 3. I hope that you guys have been enjoying this video because I am exhausted, I am tired, ich bin kaputt, I am just exhausted. I know, right? Such hard work. But no, so the next section, as you can tell from the title of this video, is my read fiction. Because you're going to notice it's substantially shorter than part 1 and even part 2. And that is because I have a lot of books on my Kindle that I've read that I don't have physical copies of. I have a lot of books on my on Audible that I don't have physical copies of, but I've been working on getting them. And like on my GoodReads, I have like 400 something read books, but I don't own them all because I only started collecting books a bit ago, and I tend to, yeah, so they're gonna be way shorter. But my goal is to never ever need to buy another bookshelf for fiction and nonfiction books. Maybe for my language books, maybe for something else. So my goal is that these are always constantly going to be shifting, but never outgrowing them. So even though my read books are a tiny portion, I'm hoping that in the future that it'll expand my read books will expand this way. But yeah, so hope you enjoyed part 3. I'm just gonna put kind of here and there, like, if I loved it, or if I loved it, because I don't keep books that I hated. So yeah, so these are all books that I loved. So I might have read other ones, but I didn't hold on to them. But yeah, enjoy. The Phantom of the Opera by Gaston Leroux. I surprisingly really loved this. Great Expectations by Charles Dickens. I really need to read more Dickens. I've only read like 2 of his stuff, but I like how he sets everything up, and then all the dominoes fall towards the end. Lolita by Vladimir Nabokov. Probably some of the best writing I've ever read. Truly one of the best written books I've ever read. Really hard to read. It took me a couple months to finish reading because it was difficult to read. But yeah. Now I have 2 copies of my favorite book. So my all-time favorite book is Crime and Punishment by Fyodor Dostoevsky. This is not the original one I read it in. I reread it in this version because my sister has the one I first read it in. I was holding on to it. And then I bought myself this beautiful red cloth-bound one. One death in exchange for thousands of lives. It's simple arithmetic. So good. There's the axe there. I have my gorgeous copy of War and Peace by Leo Tolstoy. I'm glad I read it once. Would never read it again. Never reading that again. I much preferred Anna Karenina by him. Which, speaking of, I will show you that on the next shelf. Here we have one of my favorite books of all time. Top 10 favorite books. East of Eden by John Steinbeck. This book is brilliant. Oh my goodness. Big book, definitely not a chore to read. We have The Brothers Karamazov by Fyodor Dostoevsky. Very good as well. Not as good as Crime and Punishment, but very brilliant and very good in its own way. Far from the Madding Crowd by Thomas Hardy. Very, very good book. Now here comes my favorite Tolstoy, which is Anna Karenina. I've only read 2 Tolstoy, to be fair, but I much prefer this than War and Peace. Short story collection by Fyodor Dostoevsky, from Fyodor Dostoevsky. Didn't really care for this one as much, but I love him. So, and there's a quote from Nietzsche, which is my favorite philosopher, on it. So, yeah. He says that Dostoevsky, the only psychologist from whom I had something to learn. The Moonstone by Wilkie Collins. Not my favorite Wilkie, but I really liked it and was pleased with the ending. I've really come to love Wilkie Collins, and I have 2 books that are unread of his on my shelf that I want to correct, but I've read about 3 of his. The Nicomachean Ethics by Aristotle. Had to read this in school. The Analects by Confucius. Also had to read this in school and uni. Leigh by Yevgeny Zamyatin. This inspired George Orwell's 1984, which is what inspired me to pick it up, because I love 1984. Not impressed, but it's a point staple, so keeping it here. Tale of Two Cities by Charles Dickens. I hated reading this in high school. I really appreciate the plot, but I didn't enjoy reading it. But I do wonder if it would be different if I read it now as a full-grown adult. The House of Mirth by Eden Warren. Read this with my book club. Really liked it. Or, didn't dislike it. A Simple Story by Elizabeth Inchbald. Really, really, really loved this. Like, absolutely loved this. It was a simple story, but it was a good simple story. Oh, by the way, if you guys can't tell, I ordered it just like on my Unread Nonfiction. I ordered everything first by my classics and my classic collections, and then everything else can go however. So, yeah. Jezebel's Daughter by Wilkie Collins. This was a Wilkie that I loved. Oh, no. This is one that I cannot remember. This is not my favorite. I think it was okay. Yeah. That was the one that I thought was okay. No. The Dead Secret. Oh my gosh. Sorry, I'm confusing myself. So, The Dead Secret by Wilkie Collins was okay. That's the one I didn't really care for. Jezebel's Daughter, though, and The Moonstone I really liked. And The Woman in White I really liked. Which I don't know if I own on here yet. So Floya or Demora by Charlotte Dacker. This white is not the easiest to see on here. The Russian Master and Other Stories by Anton Chekhov. This is my first Chekhov. Loved him. Cannot wait to get to more. The Dumb House by John Burnside. My friends and I read this as our first episode on our podcast about that book. You can check that out. I'll link it down below. Very good. Frankenstein by Mary Shelley. I love this book. Oh my goodness. So good. Read it in high school, and oh, the philosophy, man. The philosophy of science. Dracula by Bram Stoker. Absolutely loved this book. But I can see why people don't like it. I loved it though. There we go. Okay. We have 1984 by George Orwell. Very good. Read this in college for the first time. I was staying up late, and there's the part near the end, which if you read it, you know, that scared the bejesus out of me. Oh, my heart. Wuthering Heights by Emily Bronte. Very good. I gave this 5 stars. So good. And it's even better if you picture Heathcliff as black, as I believe he should be. So, Wuthering Heights by Emily Bronte. Jane Eyre by Charlotte Bronte. I believe that was 5 stars for me. Life of Pi, I had to read in high school, for high school over summer break. Loved this book, 5 stars. The Paying Guest by Sarah Waters. Didn't hate. This is the first Sarah Waters that I was kind of like, not awful. Because I really hated Fingersmith. My Gillian Flynn collection. Now, Gillian Flynn is an absolute genius. She's just a genius. So we have Gone Girl, of course. Sharp Objects, which is my favorite. Dark Places. And of course her short stories she wrote for her buddy, I think it was George R.R. Martin, The Grown Up, which we also talked about on my podcast. We have Brideshead Revisited by Evelyn Waugh, which I just finished reading, so that'll be, you'll already have heard me talk about it in my December wrap up. And yeah, so mixed emotions, but the further I go away from it, the further I realize that it's not that I hated it, it's just that it's made me sad, and I was tired of being sad, so I thought I was angry at the book, but it's actually a good book. Oh my gosh, sorry guys. All Quiet on the Western Front by Eric Maria Remarque. So good. Oh my gosh, I listened to this book and I picked up a physical copy later. Oh, my heart. Very good. We have some Stephen King, The Night Shift. I read this collection so fast. It's 20 short stories. Phenomenal. There was maybe 3 I didn't care for, and that's a really good record out of 20. We have one of my favorites by him. He wrote under Richard Bachman, The Long Walk. Haunting. I did a review of this book on my channel, so you can find that. I will link it down below if I remember. But absolutely phenomenal and haunting, and the way that Stephen King can make things that people don't normally think are haunting and make them haunting. We have City of Thieves by David Benioff, which made me cry at work, and I listened to it first before picking up a physical copy. Very good. Pilcrow by Adam Mars Jones. Very good. About I think he gets polio or something, and he becomes paralyzed the waist down, this boy, and he has to, and I think it's set like during the first or second, no, 1950s. So yeah, it's set in the 1950s, and he's disabled, and he ends up being gay, and there's a sequel to this, and I didn't pick up the sequel because it wasn't in the same edition as this one, and that made me mad, but now it's been so long that when I pick it up, I'll probably have to reread it. But very good, and he ends up being gay and like finding himself and stuff. It has to go to a special school and everything. Slammerkin by Emma Donoghue. I come to really like Emma Donoghue's stuff. Very impressed every time I read her stuff. A Little Life by Hanya Yanagihara. This book is made me the most depressed a book has ever made me. I was distraught and upset for about 5 days. You couldn't pay me to reread it, but it's very good. Read it. About a group of queer adults, and some of them just have, one of them just has about the worst life possible that you could ever imagine, and yeah. The Wonder by Emma Donoghue. This is probably my favorite of hers. 5 stars. Very good. Shutter Island by Dennis Lehane. Phenomenal. I watched the movie before I read the book. The book, it's probably one of the most faithful adaptations of a book to movie I've ever seen. I felt like I was watching the movie as I read the book. Elias Grace by Margaret Atwood. I wasn't impressed with The Handmaid's Tale by her, but I really enjoyed this, and I listened to this first before getting the book. Jonathan Strange and Mr. Noel by Susanna Clarke. a beast of a book, but it all comes together in the end. So even though it's not really my favorite, when you finish it, you're so impressed by how all the pieces came together. American Housewife by Helen Ellis, short story collection. Didn't care for it, but this cover is absolutely gorgeous, so yeah. The Postman Always Rings Twice by James McCain. Same with this was just okay, but I loved the book and the cover. I know I said at the beginning of the video I don't keep books I don't like, but every once in a while I do. We need to talk about Kevin by Lionel Shriver. I listened to this book first before buying it. Phenomenal. And the movie is really good too. And I've actually seen the movie before I read the book, and I still really loved it. The Burgess Boys by Elizabeth Strout. Absolutely love this. A good family drama. And I love a good family drama. The Left Hand of Darkness by Ursula Le Guin. This is one of my favorite science fiction books. Also read this in college. I did a special, like, little, you have to pick a tiny pathway at the school I go to, and mine was gender, sexuality, and the body. And one of the books I read in my English class that was the topic was this, and life-changing. That whole class was life-changing. Ill Will by Dan Chown. So good, so good. I read this, picked this up on a whim. I borrowed it from the library originally, my workplace, and so good. Didn't end the way, it's a mystery, and the reveal of, you know, the murderer was just whatever, but the whole journey up to it and just everyone and the characters, I really, really loved this, like, truly. So now we have, oh my gosh, one of my favorite books of all time. We have The Flowers in the Attic, and it's mixed with its sequel, Petals on the Wind by V.C. Andrews. I have talked about this book a billion times. I haven't done a solo review of it, I don't think. I'd have to go back and check, but one of the best books I've ever read. And people say V.C. Andrews was always a guilty pleasure because she reads about romance and taboo romances and stuff, but honestly, Flowers in the Attic is one of the best suspense and family drama and just books that I've ever read, and the sequel is really good too. There's a third one and a sort of fourth one, but I don't think they're necessary to read. I was really happy with how the second one ended, so I just stopped there. Here we have A Clockwork Orange by Anthony Burgess. I listened to this when I read it, and I'm so glad I did. I think that the world it has a unique vocabulary, and at first you're like, I don't know if I can follow this. And then as it goes, you really pick up on it, and it was just raised a lot of really interesting questions, and I really, really like this book. This is 5 stars for me. And then I have The Master and Margarita, and I didn't put it with my other classics just because, I don't know, I just didn't feel like it, probably because I didn't like it. This is probably like the first Russian classic that I absolutely could not stand or see the point of. I read it for a book club, and it was always on my to-read list, so I really powered through, but it was just formatted, and the story was just in such a nonsensical way that it wasn't as grounded as I feel like a lot of other works by classic Russian authors are, and for me, that style is just not my thing, so. And then there's The Murder at the Vicarage by Agatha Christie, and this is so funny because this is another one where I don't know why it's on my shelf because I don't like Agatha Christie, but every once in a while I'm entertained. There's just so much stuff in her books that I'm like, ugh, really didn't need to read that, or really, but sometimes her mysteries are really good, which can't be denied. It's why she is so famous. So yeah. The Night Circus by Erin Morgenstern. Very, very good. Didn't care for the romance. It deals with, you know, young people and the romance, and that was really bad, but this has some of the best world building I've ever seen. It surrounds magic and a circus, and I really loved it. Like, I loved the visuals that it described, and I could see myself there at this magical, you know, kind of supernatural feeling of being at a circus. It really brilliant. 100 Years of Solitude by Gabriel Garcia Marquez. I read this book in high school, and I loved it. It was one of the books I really, really loved from high school, and I really want to reread it one day. My dream would be to read it in Spanish. That's definitely a lifelong goal. But yeah. Anthem by Ayn Rand. I explained in my first video what Ayn Rand is doing on my shelf. And this was stupid. Philosophy is so stupid. I mean, stupid as in just like whack. But I think it's important to read, and this was really short, and so, you know, the philosopher in me just feels like I need to keep it. The Curious Incident of the Dog in the Nighttime, a novel by Mark Haddon, very, very good, about an autistic boy who tries to figure out who murdered the neighbor's dog. Jurassic Park by Michael Crichton. I read this years ago. Very good. You all know what it's about. During that, then Spectre Burlock Mysteries, which includes The Judge and His Hangman, plus the story Suspicion by Friedrich Dürrenmatt, about a detective who solves mysteries. I read this in my German class. Like one of my first German classes, we had the English version of the book and the German version of the book. And so this is the English version, which is why it's not in my German section. And very, very good. I just really loved it. I don't know. I really loved it. Fahrenheit 451 by Ray Bradbury. We all know what that's about. The Little Stranger by Sarah Waters. Now this is I have a love-hate relationship with Sarah Waters. I hated Fingersmith. I read The Paying Guest and thought it was okay. And actually I think it's okay. I think it's a good book, but The Little Stranger is what really, really cinched me on not giving up on her. Because I finished it and I was so angry. And then 5 minutes later, I was like, this is brilliant. It does something that I was so impressed by that normally pisses me off after, you know, books and mysteries and stuff. And it just has a combination of everything I normally don't like, and it's done very, very well. And to this day, I'm still left wondering about a couple things. We have so that's funny. These should go in the nonfiction section. I accidentally put them down here. But two little Marx and Einstein for Beginners books. So that needs to go up, up, and away. Lord of the Flies by William Golding. Very good. Classic. We have 3 more Stephen Kings here. Cujo, about a family dog that goes rabid. Made me sad. We have The Green Mile. So good. One of my favorite Stephen King books. When people ask me what books to recommend by him, this is one of the ones I included along with The Long Walk. I usually say The Long Walk, Thinner, and The Green Mile. And then, you know, a couple others too, depending on the person I'm talking to. And then Gerald's Game, which I didn't care for that much, but this is connected with Dolores Claiborne, which is a book I read but don't have a physical copy of. And so if you read enough Stephen King's, you become the Stephen King cinematic universe, literary universe. And it's absolutely amazing. And it's funny because the TV show, which I cannot think of off the top of my head, is basically a Stephen King universe as well. It stars Bill Skarsgård, so you can Google it. I'm totally blanking on the name, sorry. But I really loved that. I love that little kind of, I don't know if it's an Easter egg or what, but I loved that aspect. And I'm reading all his works, so I'll probably, unless one of his books really pisses me off, all of his books will be staying on my shelves. We have The Jungle by Upton Sinclair. The Reader by Bernard Schlink. Let's see. There you go. We have Idle Fears and Idle Threats, which is a detective series about a guy who moves to a small town called Idle to be the new lieutenant or guy in charge or whatever, captain. But he's gay, and it's set in the year like the 1980s or something. So as you can imagine, that's not really easy. He's moving to this small town, there's prejudices. This started off, I think, the character's name is Thomas Lynch, and these are literally so good, except I read them so fast that the next one's probably not gonna be out for like another year. So that sucks. But it's absolutely phenomenal. It even touches on things like race as well, with some of the cops, and it's just phenomenal. Middlesex by Jeffrey Eugenides. So good. I talked about how like Eugenides' other books, like a trilogy, and I gave 2 of his trilogies 5 stars, and 1 was absolutely awful. This is the one that I loved, one of them that I loved. No. Rapture, I've mentioned BioShock a lot. It's a philosophical masterpiece, these video games, and there's a companion piece book, which is absolutely brilliant, and if you like video games and if you like this game, definitely read it and check it out. We have When She Woke by Hilary Jordan, which is a dystopian novel where crimes, you get your skin injected with a pigment, abortion's illegal, so if you have an abortion, then you turn red. So it's kind of a mixture of The Scarlet Letter and The Handmaid's Tale, but I actually read this before The Handmaid's Tale, and I think this is way better than The Handmaid's Tale. I was not impressed by The Handmaid's Tale at all. Maybe it's a little bit dated, because things have gotten worse in a very real sense, and so it just didn't, I wasn't really feeling the fear. But with When She Woke, at least, it felt, you could also say it's a little dated, the concept, but not really. And I actually didn't hate a male character in here, which I don't want to give anything away, but there's usually male characters that I automatically hate if they do this. But I actually liked him, and I thought it was really, really good. We have The Shadow of the Wind by Carlos Ruiz Zafón, which I understand why people don't like it. My friend didn't, Zena. We read it together. But I enjoyed it, but I'm definitely not reading any of the sequels. So, The Bell Jar by Sylvia Plath. Love this book. Really life-changing. Not life-changing, but you could feel it. You could feel it. Everything she was going through. We have The Giver by Lois Lowry. Really loved this book. Not going to read any of the sequels, though. I had no idea it was part of a quartet until way after I read it, but very, very good. It was 5 stars for me. The Cider House Rules by John Irving. I first listened to this book. Very good, very interesting, a very good general fiction book, and I'm looking forward to reading his other stuff. The Angel Maker by Stefan Breege. This, I always say, is a companion piece that should be read with The Dumb House by John Burnside. 2 sides of the same coin. Very different books, but again, like I said, that's why 2 sides of the same coin. Very, very good. Confessions by Kanai Minato. Oh my gosh, this shook me. This was so good. So good. Sarah Winman. Tin Man by Sarah Winman. So sad. Queer book, so sad, but good. Actually, you could even say that this is a companion piece to Brideshead Revisited, I would say. The Song of Achilles by Madeline Miller, so good, a classic. Six of Crows by Leigh Bardugo. I will not go on and on about this. This is a YA book series that is part of a duology. Book 2 is called Crooked Kingdom. I've done a review of this book on my channel. I will link it down below. One of the best written books I've ever read. Like, this author is a genius, the way she mapped out everything and everything was wrapped up. Like, talk about, like, no stone left unturned. Very, very good. I mean, I was really impressed by a lot of the plot twists and the reveals, but I talk about that in my video. So check that out. Frog Music by Emma Donoghue. Just okay. But I do like Emma Donoghue and I do like this cover, so keeping this book. Aristotle and Dante Discover the Secrets of the Universe. Really great, queer, kids of color story about Mexican American youth, which is a queer Mexican American youth, which is awesome. I have 3 books, all by Herman Koch. We have The Dinner, which was just okay and pissed me off. We have Dear Mr. M, which I really didn't like, and we have Summer House with Swimming Pool, which I did like, all by Herman Koch. So The Dinner is actually really good. It was just something that really made me angry. But if you want books that you cannot, that you'll fly through, like, you want to read his stuff. So The Dinner, Dear Mr. M, you'll fly through it, but I wasn't really pleased with the ending. And Someone Has a Swimming Pool, really liked this. This had really awful characters in their own way, but a very, very well put together story, and this is my favorite of his for sure. Evil in the Mask by Fuminori Nakamura. Very weird book, weird storyline. It touches on almost science fiction-y in aspects, but I don't think it's meant to be science fiction-y. And just okay overall, but it was so intrigued me with some of the concepts that I kept it. And then we have The Weight of Water by Anita Shriver. Read this for a book club book. I agree that it actually is really simple, but a lot of them didn't care for it that much, but I thought this was really, I liked it. I was gonna say I think it's a really good read, but it's really not that good of a book, but I mean, I liked it. Oman Ra by Victor Pelevin, one of the weirdest books I've read. Also read it in my book club, and I'm in a book club with women that are a lot older than me. So this takes place during the Cold War, you know, the space race. And so a lot of things they were able to get that I didn't get because I wasn't alive then. And so that was really cool. Definitely interesting. Another very, very weird book that I would recommend checking out. Because I think you could give this to someone, but you'd have no idea how they'd react to it. So, yeah. We have The Collector by John Fowles. This is the book that has terrified me the most. I was terrified for about a week after reading this book. I mentioned before that this guy wins the equivalent of the lottery in the UK, and he uses it to kidnap a girl. He loves collecting butterflies. He's really weird, and he doesn't want anything from her. He just wants to observe her like his butterflies. The Truth About the Harry Quebert Affair by Joel Dicker, one of my favorite mysteries of all time as an adult. Absolutely phenomenal. As an adult, I was getting a little discouraged when I started getting back into books a couple years ago, and I was not finding any good mysteries, which I love, and this really told me like not to give up and just to keep reading mysteries. Absolutely phenomenal. I need to see if he's written other stuff. Other mysteries in particular. The Art of Fielding by Chad Herbeck. This was phenomenal. Oh my gosh. I did not think a book about baseball people, college students, was gonna be good. This was so good. So many elements that I love, so many like twists and plot turns and character storylines that I really, really loved. And this was tugs at your heart a bit too. But I really love this book. This was a really cool surprise. And then these two books, Luck in the Shadows and Stalking Darkness. They are fantasy, queer lit. As I've gotten older, I really, really, really am not into, I'm not into books that are longer than trilogies. Trilogies are all gonna do. And these books go on to like 7 and 8. And so even though I thought it was really good, I just didn't really care about getting past that. I think it's because, for me, some people like when romance happens and then they want to see the conflicts after. For me, the story is over once the romance happens. So you can maybe do like a little bit after that, but I don't care about the other conflict at that point. I think it should be done and over. So, you know, the main romance happens, and so once that slow burn is over, I think I just wasn't really interested. And I'm not a big fantasy person, so who knows, maybe if it was a different type of series, I would read at least one more book, but maybe because it was fantasy, I was just like, oh, I'm good now.